Hi, everybody. I'm Chloe Obalar.
I'm Sita Severson.
We're Vedic Wisdom Unfiltered, and today we're going to be talking about integrity in the wellness world, integrity in the world of Ayurveda, and all things related to that topic. So, Sita and I talk a lot about this, and there's just so much going around where we see lack of integrity, and it's really important for us to be voices that are promoting ethically aligned activities, because that is a fundamental principle of Vedic practice and Vedic healing is ethical alignment and staying in integrity and what that means for us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Sita, is there anything you would like to share as we begin?
Ah, yeah. And it's probably, well, not even probably, this is such a loaded topic that we could only cover just the surface in an hour long or whatever, however long podcast. Yeah, so I'll just disclose what I've been up to and why this is I mean, this is a hot topic anyway, but wow, have my butt's been getting seriously pushed. And I will leave the name of the school that I will be discussing out of the conversation. But I do want to say that if you are listening to this and it sounds familiar, or you are shopping around for a school and you want to know which one I'm talking about, you are welcome to email me and I'm happy to discuss it privately. I just don't want to go into any kind of smear campaign. Okay, I'm lying. Part of me would love to go into a smear campaign, but I am working on practicing what I teach. And this has really given me a run for my money. Um, so, yes, Chloe, I have been at an establishment. This is actually the final week, but it's a 500-hour program, Ayurvedic program at I wouldn't say it's a well-known school, but it is a well-known website that does have some education. And the nature of the course really got my attention because I'm deeply passionate and in love with all things Ayurvedic nutrition and food. Like food is my place of creativity. It is one of my loves. And and so this class really spoke to that. And as all of Ayurveda, true Ayurveda, we the digestion is everything, just everything. So um, you know, so it of course talks also about going deep into certain dysfunctions of digestion in the body. But again, that's not necessarily unique to this program, that's inherent in Ayurveda. um, but there are areas that we were going a bit deeper and with specific medicinal recipes and cool things like that. So anyway, um, what I landed myself in was one of the most outrageous, uh god, it definitely, it's colonization, it's westernization at its best. And it has really challenged me because I am someone who really leans into my sense of integrity. And I was deeply challenged in that, and my values. And I, we can get into more detail. This is just sort of the opening, but I want to say that I very much considered leaving this institution because it is, when I give some of the details, it is like beyond outrageous. It's actually downright horrific, in my opinion. And there's a lot of abuse of power too that's involved. Um, so just in general, ethically speaking, it's been horrible. But what I what I came to is that part of why I was guided, because I knew I was guided into this program, and so that really got my attention. It wasn't like, I mean, I'm an avid student. I always love studying and deepening what I know in some capacity, so it's not odd for me to be taking an intense course. um, but because I knew I was guided, I knew there had to be a reason why I ended up there, because my discernment is usually better than that. And so that really did get my attention. And I feel ultimately the reason why I stayed has been to be able to have a true experience of what's really going on in the world right now, so that it allows me us to really speak into it, and to know what other people might be going through and know it's not feeling right, or want to avoid or educate themselves about. So I stuck with it, even though, again, I mean, I was very, very deeply personally and spiritually challenged by this course. um so it's it's a it's a real issue, because, well, for so many reasons, but I would say first and foremost that, particularly when we're talking about any kind of indigenous healing or health modalities, they have been put together by people who were so in tune and so in touch and so reverent and intentional. And there can be an adaptability that part of the qualities of these things. Like Ayurveda is very dynamic, as are many indigenous, we'll just say, medicines and modalities. But when I say adaptable, I mean like we can do Ayurvedic recipes for people in Poland and South Africa. It does not have to be Indian centric in that way. In fact, it's sort of not Ayurveda if you're constantly going so far outside of your region, if you don't have to. Obviously, there are food deserts and things like that, very different situation. So it's adaptable and dynamic that way, in those ways where you're actually able to meet people where they are in a way that's truly useful for them as an entire being. But what's happening is that essentially, and I'm going to use, maybe I don't want to use this word. I don't want to use a trigger word, but I feel like I'm going to use it, and I'm sorry, but it is how it feels. I feel that many of these modalities are being raped. And again, I'm sorry to use that word, and I won't use it again, but that is how it feels. Um, and it's actually really gutting for those of us who are sensitive to things like this. It has given me my own digestive stuff that I've had to like work through, and lots of tears and lots of rage. I get very emotional about it. And I've been the squeaky wheel at this place. Trust me, they do not like me. My gosh. And yet I feel like I'm there for a reason, and I'm not just going to shut it down. Sorry, I know my internet got weird for a minute. I'm not just going to shut up and sit down and be quiet about these outrageous behaviors that are taking away the essence of what these traditional indigenous medicines are meant to do. We can't chop them all up and make them ours in those ways, like so many Western minded people like to do. So it's actually a real health threat, the stuff that I know that we're seeing, and what has been, some of what's even been taught at this school. I mean, fortunately, I've been telling many of the students, like, that's not real Ayurveda. What they're doing That is not. And I have been very loud about saying like this is where this goes, not there. And I know you've been such a source of support for me, Chloe, and like really helping me through it, because you get it the way that I do and you feel it the way that I do. But it is, and you have a degree in public health. So you understand like this is a very real threat. I don't know if you can or would like to speak into that, but I feel like, this isn't about just being like virtuous and trying to be, I'm not trying to be like this white hero over here. Like that's not it. It's that this actually spins us into a serious crisis, especially for the people who are spending billions of dollars on holistic health and holistic healing modalities, and they're actually getting harmed ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it is really hard to watch, it's hard to witness, and it is extremely pervasive. And definitely, I mean, that is one of the reasons why, Sita, you and I did want to talk about this, because it's so important to raise awareness and to help people discern, authentic Ayurveda, which I genuinely believe that people who want to study Ayurveda do want authentic Ayurveda. They don't want a watered down, westernized version of it, because that's not the version that actually provides the benefits that Ayurveda can offer.
Mhm.
And so I I do see so much harm being done to people with that form, because like, just to be clear for those who are listening, when we're talking about westernized Ayurveda, we're really talking about an Ayurveda that is extracted from its context. So authentic Ayurveda talks about us as whole beings. It's an entire scientific system of medicine and healing that includes psychology and sound healing and, postures that we do with the body that the Western world calls yoga, but we call mudra. So positions of the body that facilitate energy flow, whether it's being done with the whole body or the tongue or your hands. And so Ayurveda at its core is a science of subtle body healing that is, in the modern world, we would call it energy medicine. And when I first came to Ayurveda, I saw it as a system that taught us how to use the science of physics for healing the human body, which when I started learning Ayurveda was unheard of. I mean, there was nobody doing that. And there was no place in the US to learn it. So the only place to learn Ayurveda in this way that I wanted to learn was to go to India, apprentice myself to a person who was embedded in a lineage and learn it as an apprentice. But then now, but then having done that and coming back, right, and then being dropped into the culture of the United States, seeing what is called Ayurveda here is kind of shocking, because here in the United States, it's basically watered down to a system of dietary structure. And it's taken away from, we learn these 9 fundamental energies in our anatomy right when we start learning Ayurveda. And it's, 3 doshas, which are 3 physiological energies. We learn 3 gunas, which are psychological energies. And we learn 3 life forces, which are called the vital forces, usually in English translation. And it's the prana, the tejas, and the ojas, just for people who have been acquainted with this, so you have some context. So in the westernized Ayurveda world, all everybody's talking about is 3 doshas and food. And it's, here's your dosha, your dosha. We don't even use that in the Vedic system. So it's, what's your dosha, what's your diet? And then it's all about, here's your dosha, here's your food, and giving people this rigid dosha balancing food structure that they're supposed to follow for the rest of their lives. And that is harming people. And it's harming people, this dosha diet food system of Ayurveda that's been so easily assimilated in the United States and a lot of the Western world. It's been here for a while now. It's been here for at least 10 years, and it grows in popularity in the United States because we're a diet focused culture. So when we see something that sounds like a new diet, we're on board because we love diets here. But Ayurveda is not a diet. It's not that. And so I see so much harm coming from this extraction of this one little piece of Ayurveda, which is, of course, food is medicine and medicine is important. But what's been lost is that when we talk about digestion in Ayurveda, we're not just talking about food. We're talking about how we're digesting the experiences of our daily life, how we're processing our emotional baggage, how we are literally digesting energetically in our minds and our spirit all the time. And so that's really where we get the magic and the science of Ayurveda. I don't think science and magic are different, honestly. I think magic is just science that we haven't understood yet. So when we talk about, the amazing qualities that Ayurveda offers us, we can't get those if we're just taking this little piece of digestion, which most of Westernized Ayurveda is doing. Just to clarify for people, again, who are listening, so they're understanding what we're talking about when we say Westernized Ayurveda, because it's not. Westernized Ayurveda is not that whole system of whole person healing that we learn in authentic Ayurvedic teaching. It's not how to help people integrate their emotional experiences, their psychological traumas, their, whatever, their present life experiences, their relationships. Like authentic Ayurveda is this science that teaches us how to look at literally every aspect of life, which is very similar to the modern public health system. It's very similar in that way, where in the modern public health, we also look at every facet of life and how it contributes to our health or depletes it. That's also what we do in Ayurveda. We're looking at what somebody's job is contributing to their health, how their relationships are contributing to their health. So you can't have Ayurveda if you're taking all those pieces away. And that's what a lot of Westernized Ayurveda is trying to do. And the thing is, a lot of those folks who are teaching that in their schools, I'm not speaking to the school you're at, because obviously I'm not there and you can speak to that. But the folks I've encountered who are studying Ayurveda and seeking authentic Ayurveda are really shocked when they learn that 3 doshas and food is not all of Ayurveda. And then on top of that, maybe if people are given some, additional inroad to Ayurveda, it's going to be about what's called dinacharya, daily routine. Again, it's going to be given as this rigid structure. Do this at this time, do this at this time, do this at this time. That's also not Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is a science that teaches us how to live with life. And any human being on the planet knows that our life is not the same from day to day. So if we don't have a scientific system that adapts our flow, and then we can't cultivate health in day-to-day life, right? So what I see in the modern, this Westernized, it really is like a colonized version of Ayurveda, because the authentic Ayurveda under the colonial regime, of Britain colonizing India, that authentic Ayurveda was systematically attempted to be eradicated. So the British colonial regime very intentionally attempted to eradicate Ayurveda. It's one of the things that I actually wrote a lot of papers about when I was studying public health in the UK. And it was about, they really tried to eradicate all those indigenous systems of medicine in India, which Ayurveda is one, and to really stamp it out. And they did such a good job that most of what we encounter over here in the West is not the authentic Ayurveda. It's that colonized form that was acceptable to the colonizer mentality. And the colonizer mentality is what is, through that scientific method perspective of, let's eradicate all of the understanding of the subtle body and only work with biology. And working with biology, we're limited. That's where we get the 3 doshas and food, because the colonizer mentality can understand there's physiological stuff going on, and that correlates with biological function. And then that correlates with food that we eat, right? That's the colonizer mentality. But the real Ayurveda goes deeper than the biology. And it goes to the energetic framework of our being that is always controlling the function of the biology. And that's where we really get the Ayurvedic capacity to heal root causes of illness. We don't get that capacity from this westernized, colonized Ayurveda that's just eat your dosha diet. I mean, that'll work really well maybe for one season. Like if you're a Vata person, you're in the Vata season of winter and you're eating a Vata balancing diet, great, that's awesome. But what happens when you get into the Pitta season of summer? Then you need some, heat balancing. And what happens if your digestion is affected by stress and you have a ton of heartburn and you have a lot of Pitta going on in there, and then you're eating your Vata balancing diet? It's not going to help you. So people get really confused because this rigid system, this colonized system of Ayurveda is being taught all over the country in the United States, and it's being promoted at the most popular schools. And then when people ask me, where did I study? They're expecting an answer of one of these schools. And I'm like, those didn't even exist when I studied, right?
Yep.
Those weren't even around yet. They weren't even a thought in somebody's mind.
Amma wasn't even around. I know, like I've had people to accreditate me for certain things. Like they've asked for my hours of study in certain places, and I'm like, we didn't do a lot of that. Like I think like Nama wasn't around, like none of this stuff was around. So like we were just like, I was just going with what I was guided to study, and that was that.
Yeah, nothing like that. And
Well,
so I think, yeah, say what you want to say, because I want to hear your perspective too.
so well, what you were saying is making me think about one of the challenges at this school was that anything considered quote unquote spiritual was not tolerated. Like I had to resubmit homework and couldn't get certain words through certain software because you can't use certain words. And there was another classmate, she even tried to use the word acupressure, and she couldn't use that. It was too spiritual. I'm like, have we heard of marma therapy and marma points and marma chikitsa? Like what is happening right now? But anyway, so we were in class and there was a like say like a test whatever coming in, and she was eating a pitta pacifying diet which was appropriate for her geographical location and her what she had going on. But the teacher herself couldn't understand why she was still having all of these pitta reactions in her body. And so I pointed out in class, like, hey, didn't she say that she was in an abusive relationship for 30 years that she just got out of 2 years ago? Like, I feel like all of this liver stuff that seems to be presenting in all of these different ways is connected to that. Like she can eat a cooling diet. She can eat a cooling diet all day long, but it seems to me that she probably hasn't truly fully metabolized, which is fine. That's not an issue. It's that it seems to me like we need to redirect how is she processing and working with that stuff, and what are some of the other tools. Like, yeah, we can give her stuff for her liver, great, but she's already eating a pitta pacifying diet. Notice it's not doing anything for her. So I was talking about that, and the teacher literally said to me, no, let's stay on the topic. And I was like,
God.
what? And it was funny because the woman who this was, she actually sent me a private message. This was over Zoom. She sent me a private message. She said, that resonates with me more than anything like ever has. Thank you so much. Like, so she got it, fortunately, because that's kind of all I cared about. But that's just an example of what you're talking about, where it's, that's one of the reasons why I love working with the food stuff so much, is because I do take it as an opportunity to share, like, hey, this food is so that we're also keeping your mind balanced. We're keeping your channels balanced. We look at this dynamic flow, which does mean it's not stagnant. It's not linear. It doesn't stay the same. It's constantly changing like nature. so that your emotional, mental, spiritual world can keep up with all of these gazillion impressions and things that it is working to ingest and digest and assimilate every single day. And so, yes, we want to keep the body in sync and in tune, and that's really what it's about. That is what health is keeping all levels in sync and in tune as much as we can with the ever changing weather and seasons and times and all of that. It's like we have so many cycles and cycles and cycles and cycles, and Ayurveda is really just helping people tune into their own pulse with and their own rhythm within all of these different cycles. And so there are so many different layers and levels at play. And yeah, we're going to work with the gross anatomy because ultimately that's where we will find that many things will calcify.
Oh, you froze for a second. Let's see if you come back. We're super unfiltered today. We're having glitching and freezing
Oh,
and everything.
there. Sorry. Okay, here we are. Sorry, guys. But the truth of the matter is that it the food is what can help calcification in the body, but it also helps the mind and the spirit. But that's not the automatic doorway. It's one tiny part of such a greater whole. There's so many doorways that we need to sort of approach and walk through, given each individual. So this like super over the top prescriptive and compartmentalization of the body, the body's here, the mind is here, it's not going to work there because they are literally, they're so intimately connected. You can't work with one without the other. It's actually impossible.
No, you can't. And it's shocking to me to hear that a teacher in an Ayurvedic program would sit there and say that that observation you shared wasn't on topic, because for those who don't know, that is part of Ayurvedic medicine. Is we learn the clinical approach to understanding where specific types of emotions store in our bodies and how that storage of emotion and is affecting our physical expression. And so, and one of the things we learn is that pitta type of emotions, hot kind of emotions, store in our liver. And so that's what Sita was sharing, is that, you know, there's this observation of pitta type emotional storage. And then how in the world could an Ayurvedic teacher tell you that wasn't relevant? I mean, there's nothing more relevant than that.
And to her it was a great mystery. Like, that's so weird that you're having all of these things happen, and I'm like, these are all liver related imbalances. Why? What? So needless to say, there were two teachers at this school that I absolutely love. They are solid. They're the reason why most people stayed. And I know that they did not have any idea about a lot of the stuff going on. I did actually talk to one, and she's actually pretty heartbroken. I don't know if she's going to keep teaching there because she was already sort of like on the fence, feeling like something's not right. But some of the stuff that I disclosed to her, she was just like, I just don't even know if I can do this. But yeah, in that situation, it was this great mystery to this teacher of why this woman is having, clearly, again, if you're an Ayurvedic person, you know how to identify liver dysfunctions that are showing up in the body. And I'm like, I can't, probably like 6 months into this course too.
Wow. Yeah, it's so surprising. And the idea that, I mean, I think part of the reason we want to have this conversation is to help those people out there who are looking maybe to study, to vet their people or to vet their practitioners. And, if somebody is a genuine Ayurvedic practitioner, they don't separate the mind, the body, and the spirit, because Ayurveda teaches us this is a science that is at least 6,000 years old, right? So when we say Ayurveda is 6,000 years old, it means those are the earliest texts of Ayurveda we can find. But we also know that Ayurveda is an oral lineage tradition. So it means that the texts of Ayurveda aren't really intended to be it. You're intended to sit with a teacher who actually explains to you and helps you to practice it. So if you're out there looking for somebody who to teach you, they should be doing that. And people who know me know I don't use the word should very often. This is a should moment because because there is an unethical way to teach Ayurveda, and it's this book learning way. That's this westernized, it's a colonized mentality that everything valid comes from a book. Okay, with indigenous traditions of medicine and healing, they don't come from books, they're oral lineages. So it's really important for us when we're looking for people to teach us these authentic lineages. We need to approach the people in the lineages, ask them to teach us, accept that they could say no if they don't want to teach us, or if they think we're not a good fit or something. But but really to look for the people who can teach you, not just to grab onto whatever first comes and whatever seems easy, or whatever, in the Western mentality, we do have to really be careful to not approach looking for a teacher of an ancient system in a Western way, right? And so it's really hard for us because we're socialized to look for things in one way, but that's not really where the tradition comes from. So if we're out there and we're like, oh, I'm going to look for this accredited university that teaches this or this or this, we may or may not get an authentic education in Ayurveda there because, it's even in India, you may not, right? Because there's universities in India that were established under the colonial regime too. So, it's not a given. We do need to do a little digging to determine authenticity. And if we're looking for a practitioner to help us individually with Ayurveda, it really is important for us to make sure we're not, if we want somebody authentic, of course we can do whatever we want. Like if we just want a, Western person, we can, of course. But if we want an authentic Ayurvedic practitioner, we do need to look for somebody who's integrating that, spiritual, psychological, physical approach, because that really is the authentic Ayurveda. And we're taught in that system. It's almost like the beginning of learning. I mean, it's very early on in the learning that one of my teachers said to me, you can't ever heal without doing all three together. And she said to me, you have to do spiritual. Oh, sorry, we cut out.
Can you repeat that again?
That one of my teachers said to me really early on, you can't heal in Ayurveda without doing spiritual, mental, physical all at the same time. Yep. That you can't do only one and not the others if you really want to experience Ayurvedic healing. They all have to be integrated. Otherwise, it's not Ayurveda. Like if we're just doing food, but we're not talking about psychological wounds or releasing emotions from the body, we're not doing Ayurveda. And if we're not integrating spiritual practice, it's not Ayurveda. It doesn't have to be Indian spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be Hindu spiritual practice, right, which a lot of people, mistakenly believe. It has to be our authentic spiritual practice. And so we need to be rooted in our spirituality in order to heal. That's one of the things that Ayurvedic science teaches us. Without that heart-centered spiritual connection, we lose a lot of ability to digest our experiences and therefore our food. So yeah, anyway, that's my thought for
it's so important. And like when you're talking about, finding, if this is what people want, finding the authentically trained or authentically informed practitioner, it is tricky. Or if you're a student yourself and you're looking to learn, when you were talking about, you have to be willing to go to a teacher and ask if they'll teach you and be prepared that they may say no. I think of the word guru, which has become, oh my gosh, such a ridiculously overused term. And it's like, okay, so it's changed its costume in some ways now. Now it's influencer or expert or master. Like these are all the new fun costumes that the word guru is using. But guru is also overused. And I think one of the sad things about all of that is it's part of the colonization, similar to the food stuff, is that it starts to take out our inherent wisdom of really being able to understand that there's going to be resonance with a practitioner or a teacher, and it's in that resonance that we find the person that we are meant to be, that we're meant to be working with. It isn't this linear thought process where, oh, check that box, check that box, check that box. It's like traditionally, we'll use India as an example, but this is true across the board in many traditions. Um, People knew that they had a guru that they were seeking, and they knew who their guru was when they met their guru, because there's resonance. Still happens today. It's just not in the same way for many people, most people. And so because everyone is saying that they're an expert, saying they're a guru, saying they're a master, they're trying to express their uniqueness, um, all for the sake of business and branding. It gets really convoluted, and it's also challenging because, you know, Chloe, you and I talk about this, but the Vedas are very clear that financial success and wealth is just as much a part as being healthy as anything else. And that doesn't mean you have enough money to own a palace. It means whatever your enough and your sense of wealth is what you need. It's just like, how much food are you intaking that's proper for your body? Wealth is the same. We all have a different level of wealth that is going to speak to our need and for us to be able to live out our dharma and be healthy and all of those things. The Vedas are very, very clear that that is a significant part of health. And yet we have a lot of poverty consciousness, and we have a lot of yoga and wellness that are merging into this, in some ways, this grandiosity. I have the magic wand, I have the pill, I'm the expert in this like no one else is, so give me tons and tons of money. It doesn't matter if you need to take out a loan, it doesn't matter what you need to do, because if you really valued yourself, you would make yourself a priority and find that money and give it to me. This
Right.
stuff happens all the time, and of course I think practitioners and people should be paid for the work that they do. Like, you and I have put years and years and years dedicated to not just educating ourselves, but also integrating and living and practicing the things that we have sought out the teachers to learn from, which is true for many others in varying degrees. And so I do believe that there, part of the energy exchange will be money. And I feel that this whole like guruship has been a way that, frankly, people are being abused by it and with it. And it is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really hard to watch because I mean, I for certain do see a lot of people who, as somebody who's spent decades studying with my teachers in that one-to-one way, and not just one-to-one, but in a group, but your teacher is there speaking to you. Or, I mean, I've been studying consistently with my teachers, having personal conversations and individual mentoring for decades. And it is hard to see, folks out there do claim um, this kind of understanding that is evident that they don't have, right? And um, it's not that I'm better. It's not that I'm better than anybody. um, but I do see a lack of integrity when folks who have gone to a weekend workshop in Ayurveda, or maybe they had like a little unit on Ayurveda in their yoga class or something, they're claiming this level of knowledge and expertise that really takes decades to achieve.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not that I deserve more than others, because I don't. It's just that I know I am somebody who's put in the time and the practice and the study it's not just study, it's not accumulating information, it's practicing and embodying
It's the
these teachings.
wisdom, which is very different than the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's embodying these teachings and integrating them into my life on a daily basis for decades. And that's really what's required for us to have an understanding of Ayurveda that can really help people at the level that they're seeking. And so I do think it's so important. It doesn't have to be me or you, but for people to really understand that if that's what they're looking for, like if they're really looking for an Ayurvedic person who can really help them to achieve this root cause healing that everybody's claiming they can do, you're not going to get that with this westernized Ayurvedic form. It's just not possible
Yeah.
because this westernized Ayurveda, and that's why, Sita, we say that it's out of integrity because it's not Ayurveda.
Yeah.
A little slice of Ayurveda that can give benefit, it can give healing, it can give help, but it can't give root cause healing. It's not possible. And so it's so important for people out there to know that if they really want that root cause healing, you have to find somebody who has studied at that level, who has practiced this stuff in their lives, who has sat around, walking in the world, observing the interactions of all these nine energies, not only out there in the world, but in their bodies, in their lives, in their relationship, in their food, because that's what you need people to be able to share with you. If you really want that root cause healing, and you need somebody who can guide you through, it's not going to be, I think people do need to know also, it's not like you're going to meet a practitioner, you're going to see them once and they're going to give you your magical dosha balancing diet and everything's going to change. It does take investment of time and energy and finance, but it also, I mean, I know personally living this way has saved me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
For sure.
Because I mean, I was in some intense medical debt before I started living this Ayurvedic life. And I have hardly needed to go to the doctor since I started my Ayurvedic life. It doesn't mean that I won't go if I need it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's integrated living, but it's undoubtedly the money I invested in my learning and in my own Ayurvedic healing with my practitioner has saved me so much more than I spent. And I do think, people need to kind of consider that as well, because we are, yes, investing in ourselves, and there are people who are not qualified to help at that level who will unquestioningly tout their ability to do this, the thing that they can't offer, and charge you $10,000 for a program that they can't possibly deliver on.
Yeah.
Which is what really hurts my heart to see.
Same. And also, I one thing I appreciate is, seeing how there's some attention to like different herbs and foods and things and what it can do. But again, Ayurveda is not reductionistic. It's just not. And so it's like you can't just take ashwagandha and think you're going to get your libido back. It's like it doesn't, yeah, is that a tool? Is that an aid that could be one part of a whole supportive thing? Absolutely. Like there's a reason why we've been gifted by the earth these incredible cherished foods and herbs and all the things that we need to be happy, healthy, vital people. And so I appreciate when I see people that light up when they're in the garden and they're introducing people to these wonderful things. It's important though to not get lost in those things as being like the magic bullet. Again, it's I think there's a responsibility for practitioners who understand this, that like when we're talking about an herb, for example, that we explain that it's only one part of a whole, that it isn't just going to take care of this, because the next thing you know, people are making a mad dash to the store to find that one thing. We don't even know if it's cut with different kinds of chemicals, or like don't even know how it's been handled, so many things, and then they think it's going to be the thing. So I think we do have a responsibility to be really clear about things like that. And just real quick, I'm reminded of there's a, let's say, a famous supplement company that sells a lot of diet stuff. And a former teacher at our yoga studio would sell it and make a lot of money off of it because, of course, selling the westernized body. And he himself had probably like 4 ounces of fat on his body, and he's like all ripped and muscular and all.
Oh, you froze again.
And did I freeze again?
Yeah, you
Oh, there
froze
we
again.
go. Sorry.
No, you're
So everybody loved this guy, right? And I remember him saying to me like, "Oh, but these products are Ayurvedic." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "No, there's ashwagandha in there." And I was like, "No." I mean, my husband and I still joke about that. And I, I say, I laugh, and I know he meant well, but I'm like, that's the mentality that we're talking about. Like, just throwing something that seems to be from India into something does not make anything Ayurvedic. And yes, like it's traditional Indian medicine, but that doesn't mean it's like technically everything is Ayurveda. There isn't
right.
anything that's not Ayurveda. It's just, is it working for you or is it not? Is it productive and healthy and healing, or is it depleting and causing stagnation or taking away from? Like, everything is Ayurveda. I don't care where you live. I don't care who you are. You can't get away from it. It's the science of life.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you say that because that really is, it was such a thing that I struggled with when I first came to, I was practicing in the United States, and, people would be like, you know, Western folks, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm like, what's Ayurveda? And they're like, well, it's not Indian food and it's not this and that. And I'm like, that's Ayurveda is anything that helps. It's like, I mean,
Yes.
it's the science of life. So anything in our life is part of Ayurveda. It's not this certain tiny subset of practices or herbs. And that's what Ayurveda really is. It's an understanding that allows us to integrate anything that we encounter into life and engage it as a mechanism for healing or not.
Yeah,
It's that
totally.
discernment.
Which is what
And that's what that authentic Ayurveda gives you that the westernized version doesn't.
which
And I
is why
think people are well meaning, but they're just
yeah, for
misguided.
sure. For sure. And I feel like, that's why, when you talk about like this dinacharya where you do this time of day, this time of day, all of that rigidity is like, that actually can ultimately take away. Like, do some people need support and have a little bit of structure so that they can sort of get things moving? Yeah, absolutely. This is what I love about Ayurveda, though, is that anything can be a medicine, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't take any medicine every day for the rest of my life, because
Right.
then that doesn't even make any sense. Like, why I have a headache one day and I take an Advil, which I don't take, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I just, because I get headaches sometimes, I'm just going to take Advil every day. Like, that's basically the same kind of logic that is, that literally everything is either going to be a medicine or not. And it doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't, we have to have it work for us. It is the science of our life. So if I know that, I know that I was one of those people who forced myself to get up super, super early when I heard like that's the thing to do. And I started working on it and working on it. Of course, unfortunately, my beagle really got into that habit. So slowly but surely, I have become a very early bird, much to my chagrin. But that is not because I live the Ayurvedic life, because I have a beagle that makes sure of it. So just my little dissertation on one of my dogs. Anyway, but what I started to notice, it was like, yeah, I can do this because I am adaptable and I am driven and I am motivated. And what happens is I'm awake sort of for the first 2 hours, then I'm really, really foggy. And then I need to eat some food to make myself not feel so foggy, whether I'm hungry or not. I feel like my brain just needs energy. So I'm going to eat food. So I would start eating a little bit more than I would normally eat. And then I would feel like I needed to take a nap because I was so out of sorts. So then I'm eating and then I'm taking a nap, which really isn't great for my body. Some people can do that, does not work very well for me. And so I'd wake up and I'd have indigestion. And like this was all because I was getting up earlier than what was actually good for me. And it snowballed and snowballed. And I could easily be like, but I'm being spiritual. What do you mean? Like I'm practicing Ayurveda and I'm doing all things right. It was like, no, no, that doesn't work. Am I going to sleep until 10 a.m. every morning? No, I don't even think my body would let me do that. So take the reins off, do whatever you want, let your imbalance like have a party, right? We're not going to let the imbalances have a party either, but there is that space where once we find our own rhythm with the support, where it's like, oh, this is how my body wants to be. I wake up at a different time in the morning depending on the seasons too. When it's darker out, longer out, and it's colder, yes, I want to be in my bed a little bit longer. I do tend to sleep a little bit later or want that more. Um, so yeah, it's literally, I love the lack of dogma in Ayurveda, where it's like you can do anything you want, just see how it affects you and let you be your own intelligence. How does it affect you? You tell me, can you take that? How do you feel when you eat that food or do that meditation or do that kind of yoga practice? You tell me. Let's experiment. I can give you guidance based off of what I know about you and your Vikruti and your Prakruti. What is your nature and your imbalance? I can guide you, but let's still see together how you respond.
Yeah, because that comes back to another way to vet your practitioners, really, is to pay attention to who encourages you to trust yourself and your body versus who is encouraging you to adhere to a dogma. Because authentic Ayurveda does not adhere to dogma, and it is first and foremost about trusting your innate healing capacity. I mean, that's one of the foundational principles of Ayurveda. So if you start working with a practitioner and they're not helping you to reclaim trust in your body's own innate healing capacity, then I would highly recommend to find someone else, because anybody who's practicing real Ayurveda is going to start off with that fundamental premise that your body has the capacity to heal, that your body is trustworthy, your body gives you accurate feedback. So we're not going to look at, for example, an anxious person and be like, that anxiety is wrong. We're going to
Right.
we're going to say that anxiety is an important message from your body. Let's discover what it's telling you together.
Yep.
It's a really big difference. We're not ever looking at you and saying there's something wrong that your body's doing. We're saying your body doesn't do anything without a reason. Let's figure out the reason together and trust your body. And that's
Yeah.
how we keep healing.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why we look at the body and we look at the mind as we do the different elements of nature, because we are that same intelligence and there's no separation of those either. And so that is one of the fundamental and foundational principles of Ayurveda is truly honoring the innate intelligence, the literally the cosmos that made itself into this dense matter that we call you and me, right? And it's like that's what we are. That is all we are. That's literally all we're made up of. That's what we're working with. I mean, to me, I'm like, that is so mind-blowingly cool. Like, I don't even know what to do with myself. It's why I love Ayurveda so much, because it's like, we're all so magical. It's insane.
Yeah, it's incredibly amazing. And it's like, just as we can trust the sun rises and sets every day, we can also trust that that same intelligence is inside of us.
Yeah.
And therefore, we can trust ourselves. We don't have to try to give. I mean, I don't believe we can ever give our power away. I know there's a lot of talk about that in the
Yeah,
wellness
no.
world. We can pretend like we don't have any, and we can inhabit a victimized mindset. And when we're always like, tell me what to do, that's a victimized mindset. And Ayurveda doesn't hold that to be our truest self, and we can reclaim our ability to trust our own system. We don't have to go to a dosha food list and say, this is what I'm eating. We can say, I feel like this today. I ate this. Now I feel like this. What does that tell me?
Yeah.
And our body teaches us how to eat. That's how I learned Ayurvedic eating.
Yep.
And, you know, I got to the point where I could look at a food and know how it's going to feel in my body when I eat it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of practicing versus the dogma, is that it really allows us to reclaim that understanding and wisdom that we already have inside. Like we
Yeah.
can trust her, therefore we can trust ourselves because we're part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's a good place to end.
Amen to that, sister. Yes. I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more. I do have plenty more stories from this god awful school, Holy Mother of God. Yeah, that I know will come out along the way, but
Yeah, there's so much, like, integrity issues abound all over the wellness universe. And so we have so much that we can get into and probably will. So we'll see where we go next time.
where we go next time.
Hopefully
uh,
help everybody out there.
yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh my gosh. And please remember, we do have our email, vedicwisdomunfiltered@gmail.com. We've gotten some emails and we're very grateful for them. So thank you for the gratitudes. And please remember that if you do have topics that you want to hear us talk about, please feel free to email us at any time, or comments or anything like that. We're always open. The door is open. So yeah, then thank you. I know, Chloe, you wanted to talk about this day, and I was like, this is good timing for this topic because I right at the end of my course.
Ready. We're ready to talk about integrity. We're here for it.
We are, and I'm gonna go eat a salad because my pitta has been at a fever pitch, so I'm gonna go process some of my fire about it.
Enjoy your salad.
Thanks. Okay, it's not really a salad, but you know what I mean.
I know. You're going to eat some pitta food.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks
Take
for
care.
listening. Bye.
Bye.